Okay, and welcome back to another live stream here on Continue Freedom. Thank you so much for joining me. So, as folks are coming on board, I didn't pull up my chat box here in Rumble. Got to make sure that the good folks over on Rumble, I'm able to talk to you all. So, thank you guys so much for joining me. I truly appreciate it. Let me know, by the way, you've probably noticed that I've been doing these live streams on various days, or not various days, but various times. If there's a preferred time for you guys, because this show is all about you all. It's all about the folks that follow this channel, that have been watching me create content. It's about you guys. So let me know what time you prefer. Just put the number 7 o'clock, 7:30, whatever, down in the comment section. I would truly appreciate that. And that way I can pick a time. I've been fluttering around back and forth to try and, get a little more attention here and there. But we've got a lot of stuff to talk about today, and before we get into it, I want to make sure that everybody hits that subscribe button, that like button, that notification bell. That way you're notified every time a new video is released. It's also helpful if you comment below, whether you're watching this now during the live stream or you're watching after the live stream, and then share this content to help us get outside of this pesky YouTube algorithm. So you probably saw on the thumbnail, I had to put Elizabeth Warren in there, but some of the things, I'll give you a quick rundown of what we're going to talk about tonight. So she says that she's amped up about this D.C. judge, a federal judge, limits DOGE access to Treasury records. We're going to talk about that. I'm going to give you what I'm going to call my daily funding update, which is the revelation of all this silliness that's going on, that's coming out of DOGE, that's coming out of the DOGE access to the Treasury system, that a lot of other internet sleuths have just been looking up online. So we're going to talk about a lot of wild stuff and some plot twists and all that good stuff. Pete Hegseth, he says that he wants to audit the Pentagon now. I think he's gotten on board with the fact that the American people are pretty excited about all this accountability. They're pretty excited about this wasteful government spending being revealed to those of us who are putting the money into that system. And then we're also going to talk about Luigi Mangione. So his legal defense fund, good gracious, it is starting to skyrocket. And then we've got some Scott Jennings clips. We've got some a little bit of culture stuff, talking about Beyonce winning Best Country Album. And John Rich has some words to say about that one. So we got some really interesting stuff to cover tonight. But let's go ahead and kick it off with Elizabeth Warren and the D.C. judge. So this is what Elizabeth Warren says. Elizabeth Warren says a federal court just blocked Elon Musk from interfering with the federal government's payment system. Well, he can't interfere to begin with. We're going to hear from the Treasury Secretary. He lays it out perfectly for la-di-da-di everybody in a way that we can all understand. But she says there is no power in fighting back. Or there is power in fighting back. We won't let up until this block is permanent. So I've mentioned this before, and I know I might seem like I'm beating a dead horse, but this is about accountability. This is all that we are asking for, and this is what is trending online. Accountability for wasteful government spending. And what do they spend their time, effort, and resources doing? Trying to block it. So a DC, let me start from this. This is from the Post Millennial, my favorite news outlet out there. So if you're not a Post Millennial person, I suggest you get on board, highly suggest you get on board. But in a Thursday morning court order, a federal judge in Washington, D.C. blocked Elon Musk and special government employees, quote, special government employees, working with the Department of Government Efficiency from accessing sensitive Treasury Department payment records. So all this stuff that's coming out, this is what they're specifically wanting to block. U.S. District Judge Colleen Kohler-Cotelli, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right or not, ordered that Treasury not allow access to any payment records or payment systems of records maintained by or within the Bureau of the Fiscal Service, except that the defendants may provide access to any of the following people. And then she goes on to list, some of the specific folks that can be granted access to it. Justice Department Attorney Bradley Humphreys said in a Wednesday phone hearing that the two employees were allowed, quote, read-only access to help carry out policies set by DOGE, and the government agreed in a Wednesday night filing not to expand their access to the system or share information they have outside of the Treasury Department, according to the Wall Street Journal. Krause and Elise are allies of Musk. So this is what we've seen online, obviously, is the a large number of, or not a large number, a few computer geeks, if you want to call them that, and I don't mean that in a derogatory way. I just mean some really intelligent folks that Elon Musk has brought on board. Elon Musk, by the way, is not accepting a salary either. But these folks, I don't think they're accepting a salary, but they're sleeping on cots and combing through the Treasury system. But everybody who has access has read-only access. It's not like they're going in there and stealing money, like Hakeem Jeffrey says. It's plain out and out lies from the left about what DOGE is doing. They have read-only access, and as they're finding things, it's getting released on X. Most other places it's being censored, but on X, it's loud and proud. It's out there for the whole world to see, and that's the type of accountability that we have been looking for. But what do the Democrats do? They try to block it. And I say this, imagine putting this much effort into a lack of accountability. Imagine that. Lawyers are expensive. Filing cases like this is expensive. And maybe they won't be able to do it for much longer now that USAID is dried up, because we're going to talk about some of the funding that's been flowing through USAID, a horribly corrupt organization. But before we do that, let's listen to Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent. He explains all of this very, very succinctly. It's a really good video. It's part of an interview. He should put everybody's mind at ease as to whether or not they're in here manipulating the system, which of course we knew they weren't. But there's a lot of folks out there that think, yeah, maybe they're in there stealing personal data or whatever. Listen to this.
US Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent in Washington. Mr. Secretary, thank you for joining me.
So good to see you.
Mr. Secretary, we are inside the cash room at the Treasury Department. It is almost impossible to overstate how important the work that is done in this building is to the U.S. financial system. Yet right now, there is widespread concern about the DOGE team's access to sensitive payment systems. Are you worried at all that that access and that tinkering of the payment systems could affect the Treasuries market or cause any disruption?
Good. Well, Saleha, thank you for asking me about that, because there's a lot of misinformation out there. First of all, when you say the DOGE team, these are Treasury employees. It is 2 Treasury employees, one of whom I personally interviewed in his final round. There is no tinkering with the system. They are on read-only. They are looking. They can make no changes. It is an operational program to suggest improvement. So we make 1.3 billion payments a year.
Which is too many.
2 employees who are working with a group of long-standing employees.
The letter that the Treasury Department sent earlier this week talked about how the team currently does not have access to change the system. Have they at any point this year had the ability to make changes?
Absolutely not. This is no different than you would have at a private company. And by the way, the ability to change the system sits over at the Federal Reserve. So it doesn't even lie in this building. So they could make suggestions on how to change the system, but we don't even run the system.
And if they ask for, if they request the ability to change the system, would you grant that?
No, again, they have no ability to change the system. I have no ability to grant that change. That they can make suggestions, then it would go to the Federal Reserve, and just like any large ERP system, there would be tests, there would be this, there would be that, and then the Fed will determine whether these changes are robust or not.
As the Secretary of Treasury, you also oversee the IRS. Do you know what kind of access the team has to IRS data or individual taxpayer data?
Well, I'm glad you asked that too, because look, the IRS, the privacy issue is one of the biggest issues. And over the past 4 years, we've seen a lot of leaks out of there. The IRS systems are quite poor. When I started in college in 1980, I learned the program in COBOL. I think there are 12 different systems at the IRS that still run on COBOL, but as of now, there is no engagement at the IRS.
And if they request that access, would you sign off on that request?
They haven't, so we'll take that when it comes to it. I think there is a lot to do there, but the president was elected with a big agenda, and to the extent that getting the IRS in better shape is part of that? Sure. Because look, with the IRS, what am I concerned about? I am concerned about collections. I'm concerned about privacy. And I'm concerned that the system is robust.
But do you
and customer service.
But do you think that if they ask for access, that is something you would consider signing off on?
There are a lot of things I would consider, but look, we're in the middle of the tax filing season right now. We even, with the government buyouts that expire at midnight tonight, we have mandated that the IRS customer-facing employees, that they're not eligible for that until May 15th. So I don't imagine anything's going to go on at the IRS until then or beyond.
Okay, so now it's become clear. He laid it out perfectly. These are people making recommendations. They are in the system, able to access information, but it's to make recommendations on improvements to the system. He's talking about the IRS. It's huge if the IRS is able to make improvements to their system. Well, actually, that's not huge. The IRS needs to go away completely. You all have heard me, right? Taxation is theft. Taxation is theft. I'm all about this, using tariffs and then eventually eliminating the income tax. That'd be a glorious day. But yeah, the DOGE team is in there making assessments of the system, trying to make improvements. In the process of that, they are also saying, here's all the ways that our money is being wasted. They are releasing it to the public on X, as it should be, because when we get into this, my daily funding update here momentarily, we're going to see some of the lunacy, and not just silly, flagrant spending, but I'm talking about government changing type money that is going into media outlets and other things. It's wild. So the hoopla around this, Elizabeth Warren and all the Democrats staying up all night whooping and hollering about Elon Musk and DOGE and da. It's nothing but smoke and mirrors. They can't stomach the accountability for their cash cow, which was USAID. Now, there's others. They've already said they're going to get into the Medicare, Medicaid system to find the fraud in that, and I've got a graph to show you that's going to illuminate this. But yeah, folks are thirsty for this information, and the Democrats are trying to block it, and that is shameful because it's our money. It's our money. Okay, let's get into the funding update, and oh boy, this is some frightening stuff. But here's one that was posted. Oopsie. Ooh, yeah. I don't need the music. Let's mute that, and then I will bring it up. Here we go. So this is here's some wasteful spending that we can take a peek at. Okay, so $7.9 million to teach Sri Lankan journalists how to avoid binary gender language. $20 million for new Sesame Street show in Iraq. You've probably heard of that one already. $4.5 million to combat disinformation in Kazakhstan. $1.5 million for art for inclusion of people with disabilities. $2 million for sex changes and LGBT activism in Guatemala. $6 million to transform digital spaces to to reflect feminist democratic principles. I have no idea what in the world that could be. $2.1 million to help the BBC value the diversity of Libyan society. We're going to talk about the BBC because I didn't give you guys the numbers in the last live stream. It's nuts. To a huge chunk of their budget, the BBC comes from us. Comes from you, by the way. Comes from you, out of your pocket, funding the BBC. $10 million worth of USAID-funded meals, which went to an Al-Qaeda-linked terrorist group. $25 million for, I don't even know what that is. Whatever, to promote green in the country of Georgia. $25 million to promote green transportation in the country of Georgia. $6 million for tourism in Egypt. $2.5 million to promote inclusion in Vietnam. $16.8 million for a separate inclusion group in Vietnam. $5 million to EcoHealth Alliance, one of the key NGOs funding bat virus research in the Wuhan lab. $20 million for a group related to a key player in the Russiagate impeachment hoax. $1.1 million to American LGBT group. $1.2 million to help the African Methodist Episcopal Church Service and Development Agency in Washington, D.C. build a state-of-the-art 440-seat auditorium. $1.3 million to Arab and Jewish photographers, and $1.5 million to promote LGBT advocacy in Jamaica. And we're not done. I have a few more. One that I didn't pull up a clip for was paying Ben Stiller $4 million to go over to Ukraine and take pictures with him. We paid Ben Stiller $4 million, and there were some other celebrities out there. I didn't pull up all that one, but other celebrities getting paid millions of dollars. I think Sean Penn was one of them, to go over and have their photo taken with President Zelensky in Ukraine, to get people amped up behind the war effort. To fuel that machine, we got to use USAID money. This one was crazy. We were funding in foreign countries, media in foreign countries. USAID was funding over 6,200 journalists across 707 media outlets and 279 media NGOs, including 9 out of 10 media outlets in Ukraine. We are funding Ukrainian media with USAID money. This is the criminal fraud, waste, and abuse in America. Criminal. Thousands and thousands of journalists. I talked about it I think I mentioned it in the last live stream. It's been this week. It was this week at some point. But we were talking about Operation Mockingbird and the CIA's influence of media, and how when they canceled the U.S., said, nope, we're stopping this USAID spending, Amazon had to cancel a show. Well, now, as I just showed you, 6,200 journalists across 707 media outlets and 279 media NGOs were being paid by us, by we the people, by our tax dollars. Just the Ben Stiller photo for $4 million to send him over to Ukraine so he could be photographed with Zelensky, that's shaping the narrative using our money, your money, to pay for a rich Hollywood actor who could fly over. If he cared that much about it, he could fly over on his own, to shape a narrative that tries to convince the American people to let their representatives, who are bought and paid for by the military-industrial complex, take your tax dollars, pump it into a money laundering scheme that's going to go back into the pockets of the military-industrial complex, and thus siphon the money back out to the politicians to keep them elected. So it's a small investment. $4 million is a very small investment so that they can spend billions of dollars on foreign war and get you to go along with it. And that's it's the lies, the deception. And this is why the Democrats and some Republicans, I'm sure, they can't do it because it's not popular right now, but a lot of the unipartians, as I like to call them, I guarantee you they're ticked off about this as well. We also paid $27 million to Black Lives Matter. John LaFerve, I honestly don't know who John LaFerve is. Is he the... I don't even know who that guy is, but he basically said, you paid for this. And that's true. Our tax dollars went to fund the BLM riots, because any money that was pumped into that, well, that or buying mansions for the people who ran BLM. But $27 million bucks. Here's an interesting one too. You all probably remember this. Remember this lady? I did she was part of one of my shows. She was the one who, after Trump's inauguration, she was the one that offered the prayer. They had the service, all of that. This lady got over $50 million. She earned $53 million from various taxpayer-funded government programs to resettle 3,600 individuals, i.e. illegal immigrants, i.e. part of the human smuggling ring. 53 million people. She didn't like Trump before. She hates Trump now. But this is, more and more and more. And we're not done yet. We're not done yet. I've got more. How about this? Payment errors. This is from The Rabbit Hole is who posted this. So if you look them up on X, they made some great content. But The Rabbit Hole posted this one. These are the payment errors by program. Medicare, $51.1 billion. Medicaid, $50 billion. Federal Pandemic Unemployment Assistance, $43.6 billion. Earned Income Tax Credit, $21.9 billion. We're going to talk about Trump's new tax plan here very briefly. But, yeah, this is... these are a little more than rounding errors, folks. This is why we want the accountability, because we've known this was happening. And I'll be honest, some of this stuff, you all have probably seen this, that a lot of the information coming out is publicly available. We just didn't know where to look. When you have a government that is as massive, bloated, this massive bloated federal government, it's kind of hard to figure out where to start looking. And people like myself and other folks online, some do it a lot better because they have research teams and they can comb through all that data and find, they hear a name of something and you're like, I've never heard of this before. And then you can go chase the rabbit down the trail and find out that there's fraudulent spending going on, or that you're using tax dollars to pump up some silly organization. But the fact that all this is being released willy-nilly by DOGE and by Elon Musk and by all of the internet sleuths, the awareness of it is what makes me happy, because it's now popular. It's popular to cut the government. It's popular to cut the spending, which is why I'm grateful for an organization, an outside agency. Because again, if this was Elizabeth Warren or this was the Democrat Party in general, and we said, we need you, and we had a mandate for them to audit the federal government, they would use their own partisan individuals to do it. Elon Musk is, you could call him partisan. He's partisan insofar as he wants to preserve the future of this country by cutting the wasteful spending. He understands. He's a businessman. He took Twitter, which everybody thought was absolutely ridiculous, and he's doubled the profits of Twitter since he bought it. He's actually took a terrible company, slashed it, made it successful. Donald Trump understands this as well. And he's said before, we can't be under leveraged, so it's not about wiping out all of our debt, but it's wiping out the bulk of our debt. They understand this, but the Democrats don't. The left does not. And the Unipartians, I think they understand it, but they just don't care. But this new wave of conservative politicians, conservative representatives, is changing things. And Donald Trump is changing things, and particularly because he has nothing left to lose. Now, we can talk about BBC as well. This was a statement from BBC. Here we go. Oops, let's go. There it went. Okay. So this is a statement from BBC. A free press is essential to freedom and democracy, and 75% of countries around the world do not have a free press. BBC Media Action supports local media around the world to deliver trusted information to people most in need. Like many international development organizations, BBC Media Action has been affected by the temporary pause in U.S. government funding. Don't get too comfortable, BBC. Temporary, I don't know if I would have used that word, because I've got to, at least for the next 4 years, you're not going to be getting any more money. BBC Media Action has been affected by the temporary pause, which amounts to about 8% of our income in 2023 to 2024. We're doing everything we can to minimize the impact on our partners and the people we serve. 8% of their money, of BBC's money, came from you, came from me, came from America. 8%. That's not a small amount, because you got to think of operating costs. I mean, the margins are slim as it is in most businesses, relatively slim. 8% is a big cut. It's a big cut. Whew. So there's that portion of the update for today, but let's talk about the tax proposal. So this is Trump's new tax proposal. We knew it was, golly, we're not even 3 weeks into this thing yet. So our brilliant new press secretary, who I'm a big fan of, came out. She made an announcement today, and let's listen to what she has to say about this, because it's all good news. It's all good news.
So these are the tax priorities of the Trump administration that the president has laid out for members in that meeting today. No tax on tips, which is obviously a very public campaign promise that the president made. No tax on seniors' Social Security. No tax on overtime pay. Renewing President Trump's 2017 middle-class tax cuts. Again, these are the president's priorities. Adjusting the SALT cap, eliminate all the special tax breaks for billionaire sports team owners, close the carried interest tax deduction loophole, tax cuts for Made in America products. This will be the largest tax cut in history for middle-class working Americans. The president is committed to working with Congress to get this done.
There you go. This is his proposal, and if Congress knows what's good for them, they will give in to the mandate. They will give in to the mandate of the American people. Basically, with Trump's victory, with the victory in the House and the victory in the Senate, look, This is what the people want. This is absolute. So no tax on tips, no tax on overtime pay, no tax on Social Security, tax cuts for made in America products. This is monstrous, and this is beautiful. I am so now. My wife and I were talking about this the other day. That the tariffs. He's admitted there's going to be some temporary discomfort, and that there's no way there wouldn't be some, especially with a 10% tariff on China and 25% on Mexico, 25% on Canada. Those I think both have been paused for 30 days. But if they do go into place, if Mexico calls his bluff, and tries to call his bluff, and they go into place, yeah, things are going to get a bit more expensive. But if you have a 25% tariff on everything coming in from every other country, and yet there's no income tax, would you rather pay the 35% in income tax or a 25% tariff on the things coming in? That's a sort of thing that balances out. So again, taxation is theft. Let's get rid of it. Let's get rid of income tax. It's horribly unconstitutional. But yeah, he's moving the levers as he should. And when he pitches this to Congress, I have no doubt this will go through, because folks that are going to kick and scream about it, they're going to say that it's going to cost you something by not having to pay as much tax. Well, if we've already cut $50 billion in spending, right? Now it's pretty good. But they take in $4 trillion in tax revenue, and you shave that off for the people in the middle and at the bottom of of course, people at the bottom don't really pay any income tax anyway. But the people in the middle, we carry the burden. We carry a huge chunk of the burden. And the wealthy people do as well. They carry a bigger burden than the Democrats would have you believe. But anyway, I just think it's glorious. I think it's glorious. Glorious, glorious. Now, here we go. Project 2025, which if you guys watched any of my previous videos on it, Project 2025 is not the boogeyman that they like to make it out to be. Let's just be perfectly honest. I've read through a lot of it, and yeah, some of it I agree with, some of it I don't. Most of it I agree with, because it is about shrinking the federal government. And you can kind of say that this is DOGE. What DOGE is revealing to us in this just criminal spending by the federal government. The Heritage Foundation, which is the one that came up with Project 2025, their plan is to shrink the federal government. That's a long-term plan. The Democrats have a long-term plan to grow the federal government, to grow authoritarianism, to grow socialism and Marxism, and to inject all of that into our. They're very, very, very good at that. The Republicans said, "Well, we don't have it. We're for freedom and liberty. Yeah, fine. Well, how about we figure out a way to cull these monstrous, bloated bureaucracies, and that is Project 2025." Well, Senate Democrats held the floor for 30 hours in an overnight marathon of speeches to protest President Donald Trump's nomination of Russell Vought to head the Office of Management and Budget. Again, budget. They cannot tolerate the cutting of the budget. They cannot tolerate it. They whoop and holler and scream, and like a toddler on the ground, just screeching to the top of their lungs. They cannot stand it. And so Democrats used their time to speak out against Vought. Adam Schiff, Elizabeth Warren, Dick Durbin. I'm surprised Dick Durbin was up late, by the way. Sheldon Whitehouse, Brian Schatz, Patty Murray, and others took turns criticizing Vought. The speeches began with Democrat Senator Jeff Merkley of Oregon at 2:17 p.m. More than 35 Democrat senators opposed the nomination. The Senate, however, is a majority of Republicans. Many of Trump's nominees have gotten through their confirmation process. This guy was part of the Project 2025 drafting. He was one of the guys who was doing it. And you can't have anybody, they can't tolerate anybody being in a position of leadership if they support the shrinking of the federal government. We have to protect the machine. We have to protect the machine, so say the Democrats. And a Project 2025 guy, that's a small government guy. Well, I got news for you. Trump has ushered in quite a few of those as nominees. So I'm all for it. What about you guys? How about this? If you're in the comments and you want to make a comment here, let me know. Are you supportive? Or how about this? Do you support all of Trump's nominees, or do you have any nominees that you aren't too amped up about? Let's go ahead and talk about Pete Hegseth, one of my favorites. Love the guy. Love the guy. I like the fact that he's been doing these live streams and everything from his office. It's pretty spectacular. But he calls for a complete audit of the Pentagon. Yes. Audit all of it. Audit anything and everything. Audit the Pentagon. This is what Pete Hegseth is calling for. Again, more of the same. Spending, spending, spending. If we can get this under control. We're 2 weeks in, everybody. We are 2 weeks in. A little over, I think. Whew. But it gets me amped up. This has been my biggest, I guess, I don't know if you want to call it a talking point, but what I focus in on is that $36 trillion, that massive, massive debt, the $100,000 for every kid that's born in America. They come out of the womb, $100,000 in debt to the federal government, $100,000 in debt. And that is irresponsible of us. It is shameful that we have done that to future generations. So if we can do anything, cutting that back is going to be great. Now, we're going to have to go up against the, obviously we've got midterms that will be coming up. We've got
which is Democrats taking the
2028 coming up. And this is what we're up against. We got to start thinking forward, right? We got to start leaning forward. What's going to happen in 2027? Or 2026? What's going to happen in 2028? But Scott Jennings made a perfect point about how the Democrats are I guess their pitch thus far. Listen to this.
He's describing what is currently the dumbest strategy in politics, which is Democrats taking the 20% side of every 80-20 issue in America. USAID, people want this pared down. They want it streamlined. They want to know where the money is going. Democrats have a meltdown. Today, Donald Trump signs executive order on keeping boys out of girls' sports. Democrats take the 20 side of that issue as well. All these issues, this is like Trump's superpower, finding a bunch of 80-20 issues, getting on the 80, and everybody who's sort of reflexively against him gets on the 20. And now the Democratic Party has like a 31% approval rating. This is why.
I don't know.
Yeah, this is it. They're hitching their wagon to the most unpopular policies. I was watching, I think it was CNN, it might have been today, and they said that 79% of Americans support keeping transgender women out of women's sports, which means keeping men out of women's sports. 79%. Overwhelming majority of people. And yet the Democrats are still whooping and hollering about Donald Trump signing that executive order saying that men can't compete in women's sports. They're taking the 20%, what 20% of the people support. Yeah, it's the loudest 20%. The screeching voices on the internet, they go along with that. They care more about that than what the actual polls say, what the actual American people want. They have no pulse on the American people. So they're picking these 20% issues. And to that I say, please continue. You're more than welcome. In fact, I encourage you to continue doing this. The race stuff, like the racial undertones of things. This is Ayanna Presley today. Ayanna Presley criticizing Iowa, or was it Idaho? Well, here, let's listen to this. This is ridiculous.
Like Iowa.
Yeah, Iowa.
Governor Reynolds, let's learn more about the state. Do you know what percentage of Iowans are white and what percentage are black?
I don't know the exact percentages, no. We're by far a larger percentage of white population.
That's correct. Iowa is 90% white and only 4.5% black. So that is drastically different from the national population. So when Republicans suggest Iowa should be a national model, they're advocating for a government that doesn't reflect our country. So
Iowa's too white. This is what the American people are tired of. This is what we are all tired of. Oh, you say that Iowa should be a model because of the policies and how they run their state and yada, yada, yada. But how dare you? Because Iowa is far too white to use as an example for anything. People can't help the color of their skin, first off. It's the least, I always say this is the least interesting thing about individuals. But this racism stuff, keep going with it, because that worked out really, really well for you guys in the last election. Wow. Okay, we're gonna switch over to a couple of actually before I get into the Luigi Mangione thing, because this is going to somewhat dovetail off of this. Trende Aragua in the gang. So I don't know if you guys saw this or not, but Tom Homan has been out here. They were doing some raids, finding these TDA gang members. Kudos to them. They're doing a phenomenal job, by the way. But something happened, and I think I grabbed the right video, where they were tipped off.
Agents raided apartment buildings in Aurora, Colorado. Their plan was to arrest more than 100 Trende Aragua gang members. When the agents showed up, the apartments were empty. Bill Mangione is there in Aurora for us. Bill, did somebody tip off the gang members?
Stuart, that's what I certainly believe. This was an enormous federal operation involving hundreds of federal agents from different agencies. Their goal to target about 100 Trende Aragua gang members living here in this Aurora area. But that goal was derailed potentially because of leaks to the media that this operation was coming. And we were given exclusive access to witness all of it.
God bless y'all. Let's take these bad guys off the street. Send the Gitmo. Come home safe, every one of you.
Hey guys, we can rally up. Border Czar Tom Homan rallying the troops ahead of a massive federal operation in Aurora, Colorado Wednesday morning. Several hundred federal agents from ICE, HSI, DEA, FBI, ATF, and CBP, all targeting alleged members of the Venezuelan gang Trende Aragua. Tom, you guys have hundreds of people out here. What's the goal today?
The goal today is send a message to TDA that we're going to eradicate them from this country. There's no safe harbor. There's no sanctuary for them folks.
Fox News joined as one team of agents arrived at the Aurora apartment complex that went viral last summer when TDA gang members were seen on security video with guns.
Watch your backs on the doors on that. Please open the door. Please open the door. Policia.
As the team went door to door, they found blood-stained walls, but no gang members. The entire complex was virtually empty. At a second Trende Aragua Link complex, ICE was met by activists who taunted them.
What the is wrong with you? Get out of our community.
And others who used megaphones to coach those living inside.
Por favor, permanecer en silencio. No abre la puerta.
DEA agents used flashbangs inside while serving a warrant. That led to a handful of arrests, but no TDA gang members. A stop at another apartment complex netted no arrests.
It seems like they were tipped off. They knew this was coming.
So, yeah, I do get the impression that there were some intel leaks here, and I think that probably they did know we were coming, but we're still coming. And just because something leaks now and then it's not going to stop us.
Okay. This is concerning. I want to know where those leaks came from, first off, and I'm sure you guys want to know as well. Where were the leaks? Were the leaks inside of ICE? Were the leaks from folks that are working adjacent to ICE? How did they know, and how did they let this many people know in multiple locations? How was the word put out? That's troubling, but that's the thing that they are going to contend with. When you've had open borders this long, when you've got the little political operatives inside of these federal agencies, this is the type of thing that you can expect. And in this instance, they weren't there. The safety concern is if these leaks happen and they stay and they are armed. That's what we have to be worried about. That's why the intel leaks are such a big deal. Because an intel leak where ICE is going in to do a raid and you've got Trende Aragua. We saw Trende Aragua in the Aurora apartments with rifles, with semi-automatic rifles, like AR-15s or they might have, I forget what kind they were. FNFALs, I think, isn't that what it is? I forget. But anyway, we saw them in there with weapons. These are armed people. These are dangerous people. They do not care about our gun laws. They can buy a gun on the street the same as any other felon can. And if ICE shows up and gunfights start happening and then you start getting collateral damage, that's not what we're looking for. So we got to find the people who are leaking the data, find the way how these individuals are finding out about this, and squash it and make it public. Make it very, very public. Very public. Okay, the next thing I'm going to talk about, and we're down to our last two things, and this is really just something that is I mean, honestly, it's despicable. It's a cultural problem in America with our young people. Everybody remember Luigi Mangione? He's the guy who shot the United Health CEO, murdered him. I think I can say that. I don't know if YouTube is going to shut me down for saying that word. But donations to the legal defense fund of Luigi Mangione, who has been charged with the cold-blooded Manhattan murder of United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson, have surged in recent days after reports stated that donations had slowed down. So they report, hey, he's not making as much money. In a February 4th report from Newsweek stated that large donations to the fund had slowed in recent weeks, with the average donation being between $5 and $25. Since the report, however, the Give, Send, Go fundraiser is now at over $253,000. That is a cultural problem, a very big cultural problem. When folks think that it is justified to unalive a father, a brother, a husband who is made it to the top. I'm not going to say whether, got it. The insurance companies are cruel. They're in a lot of ways, they are cold-blooded, calculated. There's some pretty nefarious stuff out there. But that in no way does that justify what he did. And yet people say, you know what I am going to give my hard-earned money to? A hitman, basically, which is what they're doing. They're supporting wow. So Mangione's lead defense attorney said in response to the Tuesday Newsweek report, quote, Luigi is aware of the fund and very much appreciates the outpouring of support. My client plans on utilizing it to fight all three of the unprecedented cases against him. We saw it on video. We saw what he did. Now, there's some conspiracy theories out there that it wasn't actually him, that there were some differences in the like eyebrows and all this stuff, that he was set up for it. I don't know about any of that. All I know is let the legal process do what the legal process does. And if it is true that this guy is the one who did it, if you're one of the ones that donated, you're on the wrong side of history, my friend. You are on the wrong side of history. But $250,000 for a murderer, that's jacked up. Okay, the last one we're going to talk about, another cultural issue here. And John Rich had some pretty big, let's just say some harsh words for Beyonce. Country music singer John Rich has criticized Beyonce's triumphs at the 67th Annual Grammy Awards after she clinched the Best Country Album trophy. That's Beyonce, by the way. Country album. In footage that has gone viral on social media, Beyonce briefly sat stunned at the ceremony on Sunday after Taylor Swift announced that she had won the coveted prize for her album, Cowboy Carter, becoming the first black woman to scoop the honor. Wow, I was really not expecting this, Beyonce said. Yeah, I don't believe that. I think sometimes genre is code word to keep us in place as artists, the star went on, as she addressed, okay, look, Beyonce is not a country artist. In no way, shape, form, or fashion is Beyonce a country artist. And John Rich went on to say that, yeah, all of this stuff is determined by the producers, by the little folks that get behind closed doors and they say, you support me on this one and I'll get you that one. And next thing you know, you've got a non-country artist winning Best Country Album. This is why nobody listens to culture anymore. And that's the only reason I bring this up. Like I pay attention I try to pay attention to what goes on, culture-wise in music industry. I'll be honest, I listen to books, the news. That's about it. If I'm driving down the road, I love to have an audio book going, or I'm sitting and I'm reading news articles, or I'm reading historical, writings. I mean, I'm going through a thing right now. It was a video that a friend of mine gave me about the Jesuits in America. And that got me down rabbit holes. And so now I'm watching this 3-hour-long video all while I'm taking notes and then going online and doing research about all the things that they're talking about. It's fascinating. I'm more interested in that. So, yeah, this stuff is, you got to talk about it. But Beyonce is a country artist like I'm a country artist. How about that? I'll piss off all the Beyonce followers. Oh, gracious. All right, guys. Well, that's all I've got for you all tonight. I want to remind you, if you enjoyed this show, I want to thank everybody who has been hitting that like button tonight. But if you enjoyed this, be sure to hit the subscribe button, the like button, the notification bell. Leave comments below, whether you're watching live or, and I want to really press folks on commenting while we're live. I get the comments usually after the fact, but I really want to interact with you guys. That's a huge part of this for me. And once you start laying out the comments, I'll start responding. But I appreciate it. I truly do. This channel is growing. We're seeing some great viewership. We're slowly coming up where we want to be, and I've got big goals on where this channel is going to go, and it's only going to happen with your guys' support. So I appreciate what you've given me so far, and I look forward to seeing all the new folks on here, all the new folks subscribing to this channel. God bless you, God bless America, and I will see you in the next video.